I proposed to Claire when I was 22, full of hope for a future that seemed bright and certain. A decade later, at 32, our friends had started calling me the Eternal Bachelor, a title that came with a knowing smile and a sympathetic pat on the back. They would often tease her when I wasn't around, their words always finding their way back to me. "His family is getting impatient," they'd say. "If you don't marry him soon, you might lose him to someone else." Claire would just laugh, a light, dismissive sound that I had grown to know all too well. "I'm just not ready to be tied down yet," she would reply. "Let's just give it a little more time." But her definition of "a little more time" felt infinite, and recently her actions had become far more definitive. She had boldly invited a young, fresh-faced man to move into the apartment we shared, introducing him to everyone as her little boyfriend at every opportunity. The way she spoke about him was tinged with a genuine affection that I hadn't heard in her voice for years. "Alex, you just don't understand how wonderful he is," she'd say, her eyes shining. "I knew I wanted to be with him the moment I saw him." The memory of that day was still sharp, replaying in my mind as a sudden downpour began to beat against the car roof. Just moments before, Claire had been all over me in the back seat, a storm of her own making. Her teeth had grazed my neck, a gesture that was meant to be passionate but felt more like an act of possession. Even after 10 years of her unpredictable behavior, I could never quite get used to the raw, almost cruel intensity she brought to moments like these. When my own self-control finally gave way, I responded in kind, my teeth finding the delicate line of her collarbone. She stopped instantly, a slow smile spreading across her face as she pinched my chin, gently forcing my mouth open. "Don't leave any marks on me," she whispered. I froze, the heat of the moment dissipating into a cold stillness. But just as quickly, her eyes clouded over with that familiar desire, and she pulled me back into a long night of tangled limbs and feverish whispers. When I eventually woke up, I was alone in the cramped, messy interior of the car. My body ached, a testament to the biting and pinching that had passed for affection in the heat of the moment. Claire was in the driver's seat, and the ashtray on the center console, once empty, was now filled with several cigarette butts. She was wearing my shirt, the sleeves rolled up to her elbows, and held a half-smoked cigarette between the same fingers that had traced patterns on my skin just hours before. Seeing that I was awake, she tossed my rumpled clothes onto my lap. "You've been such a stick in the mud your entire life," she said, her voice a familiar mix of teasing and criticism. "Even your clothes are boring." It was a line I had heard from her 1,000 times, a constant reminder of my perceived inadequacies. I bit back a bitter reply, shifting the thin blanket that covered me and beginning to dress in the clothes she found so uninspired, despite the lingering soreness in my muscles. Her eyes followed my every movement, sizing me up as if I were a piece of property, a look that was both invasive and deeply unsettling. "Alex," she said, her voice dropping lower, "has anyone ever told you that you are an incredibly boring person?" I didn't answer, turning away to find my underwear, which had been kicked into a corner of the car. She leaned in closer, her breath warm against my ear. "How many years have we known each other? 12? No, it must be 18 years since we first met. In all that time, you've perfected the role of the well-behaved kept man for a wealthy family. Aren't you tired of it, Alex?" Smoke from her cigarette swirled between us, our faces so close that our lips were almost touching. "Alex," she added softly, "nobody in our social circle wants to marry someone so rigid and dull for the rest of their life." A ripping sound filled the quiet car as the pants in my hands, old and worn, finally tore. The silence that followed was heavy and absolute. I let the ruined fabric fall from my hands and sighed, a long, weary sound. After a moment, I looked directly at her. "So, what is it that you like?" I asked, my voice strained. "I can learn." Before I could finish, her phone began to ring, the shrill sound cutting through the tense atmosphere. The warmth between us vanished in an instant. Claire practically leaped out of the car, hurrying to answer the call, the kiss marks I'd left on her neck now conspicuously on display. The car door shut quickly, but not before I heard her voice, soft and sweet in a way she never was with me. "What's wrong, darling?" The word froze me in place. I knew Claire enjoyed playing games, that she had a restless spirit that couldn't seem to settle down. Since the day we got engaged, there had always been other men orbiting her life, some openly, some in secret. But she had never been so blatant as to bring them directly into my world. The unspoken rule was that she wanted me to look the other way, and for the sake of peace, I had always complied. But hearing her call someone else darling struck a nerve I didn't know I had. A delayed, aching pain spread through my body and settled deep in my heart. After a long, still pause, I picked up my phone and opened a shopping app. By the time Claire returned, I had an item picked out. I showed the screen to her. "How about this one?" Claire didn't even bother to look. She grabbed a pile of dirty clothes from the floor and threw them at me. "Get dressed and get out of the car," she said sharply. "I need to go pick someone up." "Picking up a friend?" I asked, keeping my head down to hide the turmoil in my eyes, trying to gauge her reaction. "I overheard a little of your call. Is your friend staying at your place? I could help move some things." The cigarette between her lips trembled slightly. A cold smile touched her lips as she looked me up and down. "My little boyfriend is moving in," she stated, her tone blunt and unapologetic. "What would be the point of you showing up covered in hickeys? Are you trying to make him angry?" She was being brutally direct. The window rolled down, and the sudden sunlight made me squint. She held a photo in front of my face. "This guy is completely innocent. It took me 6 months just to get him to agree to a date. Memorize his face and don't you dare mess this up for me." In all the years we had been together, it was the first time she had ever spoken to me so openly about one of her other interests. I stared at the smiling boy in the picture, a bitter taste filling my mouth. "You're serious about this?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. "Doesn't he deserve it?" she replied, her own voice dead serious. I clenched my fists, the bitterness threatening to overwhelm me. The ideal kept man for a wealthy family wasn't supposed to feel this way, wasn't supposed to be this bothered. "Alex," she said, her voice softening into a manipulative purr, "with your famously good temper and your reputation in our circle for being so understanding, surely you can tolerate my little boyfriend, right?" It was her favorite weapon, the one she always used when she had pushed things too far. I couldn't stand to be in that car a moment longer. As I was leaving, she called out to me one last time. "I had your things sent to the apartment on the west side," she said. "I don't want my boyfriend to know about us, so keep your mouth shut when you're around him." Then, she tossed something out of the car. It was the charm I had given her, landing in the dirt like a piece of trash. I had bought it for her after she was in a car accident, a small token to wish her safety. It had hung from her rearview mirror for 6 years, a silent witness to our life together. Now, she couldn't get rid of it fast enough. It seemed she had finally found someone who had truly captured her heart. I forced down the wave of emotions that threatened to drown me and walked away. In the half hour after we parted, my phone buzzed incessantly. She was sending me a stream of Instagram profiles belonging to strangers. I waited until the flood of messages stopped before I finally texted back, "What is this?" Her call came through almost immediately, her voice lazy and soaked with alcohol, a sound that even the phone couldn't entirely filter out. "Alex, you're getting older. What's the point of clinging to me like this? Your mother wants a daughter-in-law from a good family, doesn't she? These are all the daughters of wealthy families in the city, just as good as me, if not better. For my boyfriend's peace of mind and for your mother's, just pick one." It was clear Claire was terrified that I would interfere with her new relationship, but she wasn't always this cold. I remember when we first got engaged, she held my hand as we walked through a field of flowers, the sun warm on our faces. She had promised me, in a sly whisper, that as soon as she was financially independent from her family, she would marry me in her favorite wedding dress. She swore she wouldn't make me wait too long, and that I would never regret waiting for her. I remembered nights she would wake from a nightmare and cling to me, assuring me that she would never, ever leave. How did we get to this point? How did we end up here? A single raindrop landed on my cheek, and suddenly the weight of it all felt crushing. Loving Claire felt pointless. Trying to maintain the illusion of our perfect relationship seemed pointless. Deceiving myself just to satisfy my mother's wishes no longer seemed worth the effort. I crouched down on the wet pavement, trying to curl into myself as the pressures of my life threatened to suffocate me. And at that exact moment, my phone began to ring. I didn't want to answer, but the caller ID showed it was my mother. I had no choice. I cleared my throat, trying my best to sound normal. Before I could even speak, her furious voice erupted from the speaker. "What happened with Claire's social media? Did you make her angry again? Why can't you just learn to get along with her like a mature adult?" Confused, I uneasily opened my social media app. The first post on my feed was from Claire, written in her unique, effusive style. "6 months and 9 days, I finally get to hold your hand. Cheers to forever." The childish caption was paired with a cozy picture of her and another man. I felt my body go cold, my fingers turning numb. My mother's angry voice cut through the sound of the falling rain, piercing me to the core. "I have told you countless times, ever since your father passed away, our family has lost its standing. This arranged engagement with Claire is our only lifeline. You need to hold on to her, marry her, and save the company. Don't you understand? Why do you always have to argue with her? You can't get back into the elite circle without her family's name. Without their support, how do you expect to keep the company afloat? Do you want your father's life's work to be for nothing? Do you want him to never be able to rest in peace?" Once again, there were no questions about why this had happened, or who was right or wrong. There was no concern for my feelings. It seemed my only purpose in life was to serve as a tool to keep the family business from failing. My rain-soaked clothes felt heavy and constricting. My mother's tirade continued relentlessly for a full half-hour. When the call finally ended, it felt as though the rain and my own heart had stopped at the same time. I dragged my exhausted body back to my new, empty apartment. My phone vibrated in my pocket. Claire and I shared many mutual friends, and their messages were all variations of the same advice. "Did you two fight again? Come on, man, just apologize like you always do. Say something nice to her, you know how she is. She's just spoiled and acts like a child. Why would you argue with her? You know you need her for the company. Who else are you going to marry?" Not a single person asked if I was okay. This cruel world had bound me and Claire together with thorny vines, and no one ever bothered to ask if it was what I wanted. To everyone else, it didn't matter what Claire did. My role was to endlessly indulge her, to love her, to be with her. The fever hit me then, a burning wave that left me dizzy and weak. My temperature climbed to 103.5 degrees, and I couldn't hold on any longer. I tossed my phone aside and collapsed onto the couch, drifting into a hazy, feverish sleep. In my dreams, I saw the version of Claire who had once truly loved me. I saw my parents, who would shield me from any harm. The sun in my dream was particularly bright and warm, but like fireworks, the beautiful vision was fleeting, vanishing before I could fully grasp it. I was violently pulled from my sleep. Your wife is about to run off with another man, and you're just lying here sleeping? The sunlight from my dream faded, the warmth disappeared, and the gentle face of my mother was replaced by the harsh, angry one standing over me. It took me a moment to clear my head. Eleanor, why are you here? Why am I here? She repeated incredulously. Get up. You're not even the least bit worried about your own woman? I found out that Clare is attending a gala tonight. This is your chance. Go apologize to her. Make things right. We cannot afford to lose her. The fever had settled deep into my bones, and my body ached all over. As my mother pulled me to my feet to change my clothes, she finally noticed how hot my skin was. Why are you burning up like this? You're old enough to take care of yourself. Seeing you like this just makes me worry. She pressed the back of her hand against my forehead, and for a fleeting second, I felt like I was a child again, back in the time before my father passed away, when Eleanor's love for me felt pure and unconditional. The fever blurred my vision, and I had a sudden urge to hug her waist like I used to and tell her how tired I was. But the moment was broken when a cold bracelet was clasped around my wrist. If you can hold on, then do it, she said, her voice devoid of warmth. Our family's situation isn't what it used to be. It's not that I don't care about you, I just don't have a choice. After this is all resolved, I'll make you your favorite pork trotter soup. She lowered her head and began attaching intricate cufflinks to my shirt, even applying a bit of concealer under my eyes to make me look less sick. I felt like a present, being carefully wrapped in invisible ribbons, ready to be presented to the world. Once the last button was fastened, my slow-beating heart seemed to turn completely silent. I felt myself sinking into a dark, lightless abyss. I didn't struggle or cry out. I had become a puppet in her hands, and she took me to the gala, arriving promptly at 7:30 p.m. Familiar faces from the city's elite society surrounded me, their gazes filled with curiosity, mockery, or outright scorn. My mother, completely oblivious to my discomfort, kept whispering her expectations in my ear. This is not the time for your antics. I don't know what happened between you and Clare, but I know she likes you. I can see it. So, not just for our family, but for your own happiness, you have to make this right. Use any means necessary to get her forgiveness and convince her to marry you. I hung my head, my fingernails digging into my palms. Suddenly, a shoulder slammed into me and I barely managed to keep my balance. I apologized instinctively, only to be met with a derisive snort. You've got some nerve showing up here. Claire is here with her official boyfriend. She clearly wants nothing to do with you, yet here you are, sticking to her like glue. Don't you have any shame? The voice was unmistakable. It was Marcus, a man who had relentlessly pursued Claire 7 years ago. Back then, Claire was a true tyrant, even more difficult than she was now. The only difference was that back then, she only had eyes for me. She was never harsh with me. To make me feel secure, she would cut ties with any man who showed interest in her. Any guy who tried to get too close, especially those with clear intentions, was swiftly and publicly put in his place. Marcus was one of the men she had humiliated. But times had changed. The Claire who once held my hand tightly in public and proudly declared her love for me no longer remembered how much she had once loved me. The fever had drained all my energy, and I had no desire to cause a scene. No matter how much Marcus taunted me, I ignored him and tried to walk away with Eleanor, but she shook my arm off. What real boyfriend? She demanded. Back then, Claire swore she would never marry anyone but our Alex. If you keep stirring up trouble and spreading lies, I will tear you apart. Marcus just laughed. Eleanor, just turn around and see for yourself if I'm lying. They're over there being all lovey-dovey. How can I be spreading rumors?" His tone was so sarcastic it sent a wave of dread through me. I turned, and my heart sank. Not far away, I saw Clare. She was born to be the center of attention, effortlessly commanding the room, and right now, she was with a young man. The way Clare looked at him was so familiar, a gaze filled with gentle adoration. He must have been opening a bottle of champagne for the first time, because he spilled it all over himself and Clare. Flustered, his eyes red with embarrassment, he apologized over and over. But Clare just laughed, a genuine happy sound. She stood on her tiptoes to pinch his cheek, and then gently wiped the champagne from his face. Then, she took a hair clip from her own hair and fastened it to his collar, as if claiming him as her territory. The young man was shy at first, but Clare whispered something in his ear that made him blush even more deeply. He playfully bit her fingertip, his eyes watering with emotion. I couldn't stop staring at that hair clip. A warmth began to build behind my eyes. It was a gift I had bought for her with 3 months of my salary for our anniversary. She had treasured it for years, getting upset if anyone even touched it with wet hands. Now she was using it to build a wall of protection around another man, declaring her ownership of him. The reality that she no longer loved me became painfully, undeniably clear. I gritted my teeth, the glaring lights of the ballroom making my eyes water. Afraid that things were about to spiral out of control, I tried to pull Eleanor away before she saw, hoping to salvage what little dignity I had left. But I was too late. "You shameless pretty boy! Are you so desperate for a woman that you have to steal my son's fiancé?" Eleanor stormed over, yanked the young man away from Clare, and slapped him hard across the face. My head felt like it was about to explode. Clare, shocked back to her senses, shot a glare filled with murderous intent, shielding the young man behind her. I worried she might do something to my mother, so despite feeling awful, I forced myself to go over. "Alex, are you ignoring me?" Clare's voice was dangerously calm. "Or do you think you can still cross my boundaries like you used to? You know my temper." I did know. After 10 years together, I knew every subtle sign of her anger. This time she was truly furious. But why was she the one who had betrayed me, questioning me? I held my breath, trying to keep my own emotions in check. "My mother shouldn't have hit him," I said, my voice even. "But you are in the wrong here. The man behind you is a homewrecker." Clare's breathing grew heavier. "Alex!" she shouted. But her anger seemed to soften as she looked at the young man's tear-streaked face. Eleanor exploded. "Why are you shouting at him? You're the one who chased after Alex back then, who insisted on getting engaged, who said you would marry no one else, and now you want to deny it all?" Eleanor's words were harsh, and they caught me completely off guard. Standing there, in the spotlight of the entire party, my courage to face Clare completely evaporated. I lowered my head and desperately tried to pull Eleanor away. "Let's go," I pleaded. "You might not care about your pride, but we still have ours," she exclaimed, spitting the words at me. I felt the color drain from my face. "Mom, please, just let me breathe," I begged, trying to endure the weight of everyone's stares. It felt like a public execution. I finally managed to drag Eleanor outside, ignoring her screams and protests. Once we were away from the crowd, she slapped me. "Useless! You can't even hold on to your own woman. What is the point of you? You had better get Clare back, or don't you ever call me your mother or come home again." My world went black for a moment, her harsh words echoing in my ears. Stunned, I felt completely and utterly defeated. Sometime later, my phone rang. The ringtone was piercing. I stared at Clare's name on the screen for a long time before finally answering. Her voice came through, filled with disdain. "You're losing face from my family by association. Your mother hitting my boyfriend is not something I'm going to forget. You'd better apologize, or I will make sure you feel the pain of losing everything you hold dear. Oh, and just in case you're still clinging to some unrealistic fantasy about me, I'm holding a press conference tomorrow to officially announce that our engagement is over. This time, don't cause any more trouble for me." "Really? Just like that?" I asked, my voice hollow. "You like it?" she replied flippantly. I stared numbly at the blurred moon in the night sky, my head feeling so heavy it felt like it was about to crash to the ground. In the final second, before I lost consciousness, a shadow fell over me. A long, fair hand reached out. "A prince shouldn't look so defeated," a woman's voice said. "If this princess doesn't suit you, perhaps you should consider finding another." I slept deeply that night, likely due to the high fever. I drifted from one dream to another. In one, my mother was dragging me to Clare's house to apologize. In the next, I was back in that torturous banquet hall, surrounded by staring faces, each glance feeling like a cold dagger. I woke up drenched in a cold sweat. Before I was fully conscious, I heard a familiar voice from a nearby television. "No one stays the same, and the engagement between the two families is hereby void. Everyone, please be informed. As for Alex, he's a good man. He just accepted my affection and pursuit. He did nothing wrong, so I hope no one gives him a hard time." From behind the screen, Clare was mercilessly announcing the end of our 10-year relationship. Even though I had been expecting it, hearing the words spoken aloud still made my heart clench with pain. "Sorry," a sudden voice said. "I didn't realize the TV was on the news channel." The screen went black, and I noticed someone sitting on a sofa not far from the bed. I was clearly in a completely unfamiliar room. I sat up cautiously, the soreness in my body making me wince. A steaming cup of water appeared in front of me. "Don't worry," the woman said. "This isn't our first meeting, is it?" Seeing the confusion on my face, she smiled kindly. "Just as I thought. You don't remember me? Let me introduce myself. Hi, Alex. My name is Sophie." I was taken aback. Her smile widened mischievously. "Related to Clare, from the same family." Sophie, the famous genius cousin of Clare. At 25, she had left to make a name for herself abroad, and in just 3 years, she had built her own empire. She rarely returned home and avoided the public eye, so most people only knew her as the girl who had clashed with her family and left with a few $1,000,000. But honestly, she wasn't hard to recognize. She looked a lot like Clare, especially around the eyes. Sophie's eyes, however, were deeper and sharper, honed by years of navigating the fierce world of business. I took a deep breath, not daring to let my guard down. "I've heard of you, Sophie. There's no need to beat around the bush. I don't have anything you could possibly want. If you went to all this trouble to save me, I'm afraid I'm going to disappoint you." She was famous for being cold and ruthless. In her world, everything was about profit. She never did anything without a clear benefit. I knew my own value, or lack thereof, but she just chuckled, looking amused, and firmly placed the cup in my hand. "You were so adorable as a child. How did you grow up to be so prickly?" "What?" Sophie's voice was soft, and I hadn't caught what she said. "It's nothing. Don't be so quick to put yourself down. I do think there's potential for us to work together. After all, you're full of surprises." She tossed a file from the nightstand into my lap. It wasn't thick, just a few pages, but its contents were enough to make my eyes go wide. "You're offering me a company to manage?" I asked, incredulous. "If I lose money, it's on you. If I make money, it's on me. Why?" I couldn't believe she could be so generous. "Did you see the last page, Alex?" she asked. I had seen it. I just didn't understand it. "What is the purpose of a marriage certificate?" "Marriage," she said simply, dragging a chair to the side of my bed. She folded her legs elegantly under her red dress. every movement exuding a grace that felt almost intimidating. I must have fried my brain with the fever. Sophie flipped through the file, stopping at the last page and holding it up for me to see. "It's a family rule," she explained. "From birth, you are assigned a portion of a fixed inheritance. To claim it, you need to be married. Right now, I need a husband, and you need a well-connected wife to help you. Why not cooperate?" She was explaining a family secret that everyone in our circle knew. It was the reason she had left years ago. Her father had wanted her to marry for money, and she had run away. I couldn't understand why she was choosing this path now. She didn't rush me, just handed the file back. "Take your time to think about it. Claire has moved on. Marrying me would certainly annoy her. The next time you see her, she'll have to respectfully call you brother-in-law. Also, if you want to preserve your father's legacy, partnering with me is the fastest way to do it. I'm busy, though, so I won't be able to help you much. You'll have to protect what's yours on your own. I'll just give you a company and a bit of startup capital. The rest is up to you." Contrary to her reputation for being succinct, she was quite wordy, but every word was honest and hit exactly where it hurt. I tightened my grip on the file, about to speak, when my mother's call came in. I took a deep breath and answered, only to be immediately met with a flood of scolding. "Where are you now? Get back here this instant, and we will go see Claire. If this wedding doesn't happen, the day she gets engaged to another man will be the day I cut all ties with you." There was not a single word of concern or comfort. I couldn't remember when exactly my mother had started seeing me as nothing more than a bargaining chip to be used for the family's interests. I struggled to open my fever-chapped lips, but in the next second, the line went silent. Shortly after, a text message arrived. "I've set up a meeting with Claire in a hotel tonight. Work things out with her. If you can't, then force the issue. If you can't keep her heart, at least make sure she gives you a child to keep her tied to you. Stop thinking you can do everything yourself. Having help is better than being out there on your own." I clenched my teeth, the feeling of shame almost consuming me. Sophie extended the file towards me again. "If you want to sign, there's a pen inside." For a long moment I gritted my teeth and looked up, my vision blurred by the warmth of unshed tears. "Just one question," I said. "Aren't you worried I might lose everything?" The amount of seed money she was offering, as written in the document, was far more than the inheritance she stood to gain. Sophie simply raised an eyebrow. "I never doubt my judgment of people. Or are you not confident in yourself?" Aside from my late father, Sophie was the second person to ever show this much faith in me. She was willing to bet on me, a man with nothing left to lose. So what did I have to be afraid of? I took the folder and swiftly signed my name before handing it back to her. "It's a pleasure to work with you." She was even more efficient than I was, immediately handing me a bank card. "The pleasure's all mine, Alex. I hope this time you'll bring me a different kind of surprise." Walking out of the Civil Affairs Bureau, the whole experience still felt completely surreal. Perhaps it was the after effects of the fever, but my head was in a fog. Sophie quickly exchanged contact information with me, and before I knew it, she was handing me another bank card. I took out the one she had given me earlier, offered a polite smile, and said, "According to the contract, you've already given me everything I'm entitled to." Without any fuss, Sophie slipped the new card between my fingers. "As a partner in our venture, I have given you what was required. This one is from your legal wife. There's a family dinner tonight. Dress however you like. This card has no limit. I have a meeting this afternoon, so I can't join you." Sophie was incredibly busy. Even during the short time it took to sign our marriage certificate, her phone was buzzing non-stop with work-related messages. I didn't want to be a nuisance, so after we parted ways, I contacted the assistant she had assigned to me, got a general overview of the new company, and then went to prepare for the family dinner. I had been prepared for the possibility of running into Clare at the dinner, but I didn't expect it to happen so soon. In a high-end luxury store, Clare was sitting on a white, plush sofa, dressed in a designer gown. As she waited, she kept frowning at her phone, as if expecting an important message. After everything that had happened, I no longer deluded myself into thinking she still held any affection for me. I had no desire for any further entanglement. We had parted on terrible terms, and if we were going to coexist at family gatherings, it was inevitable that we would see each other. My plan was to wait by the entrance until she left, but Clare showed no signs of leaving. Leo, the young man she was with, was trying on clothes in the fitting room. He had already tried on 6 different outfits, but Clare seemed dissatisfied with all of them. Worried about being late, I finally took a deep breath and stepped inside. Caught by surprise, Clare's eyes widened the moment she saw me. She quickly put down the phone she had been checking repeatedly and raised an eyebrow at me with a smirk. "What, did you realize your mistake? Are you here to apologize to my boyfriend?" Her expression was heated, and she clung to Leo's arm tightly, but the way she eyed me was intense enough to burn. Honestly, I hated that look. It was devoid of respect and politeness. Ever since my mother had started pushing me to depend on her, she had stopped seeing us as equals. The bank card in my hand felt like it was pressing into my palm, a sharp reminder of my new reality. Reaching deep within myself, I pushed down the sorrow that was welling up inside. I raised my head, my eyes flat and calm. "You only apologize when you've done something wrong, Clare. In this situation, the apology should come from that morally questionable fiancé of yours. As for why I'm here, considering our current relationship or lack thereof, I don't owe you any explanation." I glanced at a nearby sales attendant, who immediately understood. "Mr. Alex," she said, "the clothes you requested are ready for you to view." Wanting to get things over with quickly, I started to move on. Clare, however, seemed determined to stall me. "Alex, you didn't think your lie through very well. I've already canceled all your credit cards. Where did you get the money to shop in a place like this?" Leo tried to play the role of peacemaker. "Mr. Alex, perhaps there's been a misunderstanding. But it's okay, I'm not holding a grudge. You don't need to do something silly just to spite Clare. If there's any clothing you like, I can pay for it for you. I just don't want you to do something foolish in a moment of impulse." He was acting cordial and understanding, and I could tell his sincerity was genuine. But my patience had worn thin. Dealing with Clare's antics was tiring. Loving her had been exhausting. In the past, I had spoiled her out of genuine affection, believing she was just childish and naive, thinking she would eventually grow up. Reality had slapped me hard. Love or not, the truth was now crystal clear. Maybe there was a small part of her heart that still belonged to me, but what I had always wanted was a complete, uncompromised love. I would rather have nothing at all than accept her leftovers. Dropping the facade, I silently shrugged off her grip and walked away. "Lead the way, please. I'm short on time." But Clare followed, grabbing my arm, her fingernails digging into my skin. She practically growled, "Alex, can't you just relent a little? Be less stubborn." Her words framed our situation as if it were just a petty argument. I glanced mockingly at the matching rings on her and her companion's fingers. Pushing her hand away, I said, "Instead of wasting your time on someone you claim not to love, why don't you pay some attention to your little boyfriend over there? You didn't seem to mind when his eyes were turning red." Clare froze, her hand still raised in the air. I walked past her without a second glance, following the clerk to try on my clothes. She cast a gloomy look in my direction, and the next thing I knew, the trash can from beside the sofa came rolling to a stop at my feet. "Alex, you know what I hate the most?" she spat. "That so-called proper attitude that the elders drilled into a high-class live-in husband like you. It was because of that static face of yours that I fell for your act, mistaking your deliberate advances for sincerity and wasting so much of my time on you. So that's what she thought. All those years I had genuinely liked her, and she had seen it all as a calculated attempt to get closer to her family's wealth. My fists, which had been clenched, suddenly went limp. I didn't even have the energy to explain myself. Leo might have tried to restrain Claire, but she shook him off. She stubbornly walked over, stood on her tiptoes, and turned my face towards hers. Her grip wasn't strong, but her sharp fingernails digging into my jaw made me wince. Before I could react, someone else dashed over and slapped Claire hard across the face. The familiar scent of her perfume filled the air, and I looked up to see Sophie, her face a mask of stern disapproval. "Claire, did your manners and upbringing completely go to waste? Who gave you the courage to lay a hand on your brother-in-law?" "Sister? Brother-in-law?" Claire clutched her reddening cheek, her confused gaze shifting from Sophie to me. Then, she suddenly burst out laughing. "You must be mistaken. I just got back. Alex is my fiancé. How could he possibly be yours?" "Be precise," I corrected her, my voice cold. "He was your ex-fiancé, and you were the one who dumped him, remember?" Claire's laughter died in her throat. "That joke isn't funny at all." "Do you think I'm joking with you?" When Sophie wasn't smiling, her calm eyes held an intimidating authority. She pulled a brand new marriage certificate from her bag and slapped it open in Claire's face. "You may have left your manners behind, but you can still read, can't you? At least recognize the faces, right?" "No, it can't be." Claire stared at the certificate, her gaze so intense it seemed like she was trying to burn a hole through the paper. When Sophie finally put it away, Claire suddenly lost control. She pushed Sophie aside and rushed towards me, her eyes red with fury. "Alex! How could you marry my cousin? How could you?" "Why shouldn't I?" I shot back. "If you could cheat on me while we were together, why can't I be with someone else now that we're nothing?" Claire was so self-centered that she couldn't even stand the thought of me moving on after she had left me. Leo tried to pull her away, but she shoved him aside. Her obsession made it seem like I was the one who had done something unforgivably wrong. Sophie stepped between us, preventing Claire from getting any closer. Just as Claire reached me, Sophie sidestepped, causing her to stumble and fall, spraining her ankle. Unable to get up, she just lay on the ground. Leo rushed over to help her, but Claire didn't even look at him. Her eyes were fixed on me. "Alex, after all these years, did you never have even a tiny bit of affection for me? Couldn't you see how much I cared for you? You didn't even get jealous when I was with Leo. What am I to you?" She stubbornly demanded an answer. Sophie stepped in front of me, blocking my view. "Don't worry about her. She's poorly disciplined. Her father will take her home for a lesson later. Go change your clothes." "Why can't he come here?" Claire was too furious to think straight. Sophie's face visibly hardened, and she started to pull out her phone to make a call. Claire didn't seem to care. She pulled a ring out of her bag as if she was giving up, her eyes bloodshot as she looked at me. "Alex, am I just a joke to you? I've been nothing but good to you. I gave you my whole heart, and now, without me, you can just turn around and get into my cousin's arms? Am I just a pawn for you to secure the company? Does sleeping with someone only depend on money for you?" I rarely acted on impulse. Staying with Claire despite everything had been one impulse. That slap was the second. The room fell silent. It was so quiet I could hear the voice on the other end of Sophie's phone call. "Sophie, is Claire causing trouble again? That stubborn girl. Keep an eye on her for me. If she messes up again, she's going to lose every man." I looked back, and Sophie suddenly laughed into the phone. "Sure thing. We'll keep a good eye on her. Me and her brother-in-law." That family dinner never happened. Claire ended up in the hospital after Sophie beat her up. It was the first time I had ever seen a fight up close, or more accurately, A one-sided takedown. The reason Sophie gave was disrespecting elders. The store's entrance was blocked by security, and Leo was so scared he collapsed on the ground. Sophie didn't even break a sweat. In the end, she kicked Clare over to me. "The last hit is yours." Seeing my hesitation, she smiled. "Relax. No one will bother you about it. At home, when she misbehaves, as her elder, you have the right to correct her. Besides, she was disrespectful to you first." Clare was watching me, too. Her eyes were swollen, and blood was streaming from her nose and mouth. Normally, an injury like this would have her whining and complaining, but now she was silent, her eyes fixed stubbornly on me. What was she waiting for? For me to cradle her in my arms like I used to? To delicately tend to her wounds and cry my heart out for her? But she was the one who had let me go first. I crouched down beside her and gently touched her face. Her eyes brightened. "Alex, you still— Stop!" I placed my index finger against her lips, speaking coldly as I saw fear fill her eyes. "A final reminder. I am your brother-in-law. Alex is not a name you should be calling me anymore." Since that day, I haven't seen Claire again. After leaving the store, I blocked and deleted all of her contact information. I heard from mutual acquaintances that she stayed in the hospital for a full month. There were no serious internal injuries. She was just waiting for someone she thought might eventually come to see her. I treated the news as a joke. I didn't care who she was hoping for or waiting for. After I fully took over the company Sophie had given me, I was busy all the time. I couldn't spare a single thought for her and barely slept for weeks. I worked until I was numb. It was Sophie who finally took me abroad under the pretense of a business trip, forcing me to rest for 2 weeks. It was only then that I finally caught my breath. What I didn't expect was to get entangled with Claire again. On my birthday, my mother, whom I hadn't heard from in months, started bombarding my phone with calls and messages. "Alex, are you really going to distance yourself from your mother like this? You're not even coming back for your birthday? Don't you love Mom's noodles the most? Come back and see her. She misses you." My mother wasn't always so tough. Back when my dad was still alive, she had a mild temper. Even when she was angry, she spoke gently. But ever since he passed away, it's like she's been possessed by a different spirit. She will do anything to hold on to what my dad left behind, especially his company, which he had spent half his life building. As her son, I should feel for her, but I can't agree with her methods, especially sacrificing me for the sake of the business. So I had ignored all her messages, until I accidentally picked up one of her calls. Before I could hang up, I heard her cautious, hesitant voice. "Alex, come back. Just maybe to see your dad." The words of rejection were on the tip of my tongue, but I couldn't bring myself to say them. After my last meeting of the day, it was pitch black outside. I was planning to drive back by myself, but I bumped into Sophie at the door. "Let's go," she said. "I'll give you a ride." I have no idea how long she had been sitting outside my office, and I didn't ask if she had been waiting for me. Lately, there had been an unspoken understanding between us. With her, it wasn't just about mutual benefits, like it is with typical business partners. It was more comfortable. At least with Sophie, I could just be myself. But as soon as I got home and saw Claire's face, that feeling of comfort vanished. "What are you doing here?" I asked, my voice sharp. "I wanted to see you." She had lost weight and no longer carried that spoiled, arrogant aura. Instead, there was an indescribable sense of despair about her. I instinctively stepped back as she lunged forward, a notebook clutched in her hand, refusing to let go. "Alex, I was stupid before. I didn't know how to express myself properly, and I hurt you. But I know now. Eleanor brought me your diary. I read it. I misunderstood you. You weren't just trying to use me. You really, really like me." She stuttered over the words. carefully enunciating the final phrase with a sense of relief I had never heard from her before. Relief that, after reading my private journal, she finally believed that I had truly loved her. What difference did it make now? I had written down how I drank until my stomach bled for her, how I almost fell off a cliff trying to get her a good luck talisman, how I spent a month in the kitchen learning to cook her favorite meals, scarring my hands in the process. She couldn't see the reality of what I went through, but she bought into a few words written on paper. My stare must have been too cold, because my mother awkwardly tried to mediate. Alex, I was just trying to clear up the misunderstanding between you two. Claire really knows she was wrong now. Forgive her. You two love each other. What's so unsolvable? I stared at her. The mastermind behind this entire setup. I hadn't told her I had gotten married, and Claire probably hadn't either. Watching her chatter on endlessly, I felt something inside me begin to crumble. Mom can't help you with much, but she just wants you to be happy and stable. When you get old, you should at least have someone to care for you. You two have a bond so strong, many people envy it. Why wait to get married? If you marry Claire, it's a win-win situation. You'll be secure, and the company will get a strong ally. It's really that simple. How can you be so stubborn? Claire isn't getting any younger. Listen to your mother. Tomorrow is a good day to go get your marriage license with her. Of course, it was still all about the business. My clenched fist loosened. Suddenly, I just wanted to laugh, tears welling at the corners of my eyes. Holding back a wave of pain, I finally shook off my mother's hand as she tried to pull mine towards Claire's. So, in your eyes, am I just a commodity? Claire cheating on me didn't matter. For the company's benefit, you turned a blind eye, despite hearing how people were gossiping about me. My own mother, completely unmoved by it all. She frowned, brushing my back as if it were no big deal. People make mistakes. Admitting them is a virtue. Why are you being so petty? I just want what's best for you, for your stable and peaceful future. Shouldn't I be running around for your sake? What's best is throwing me into a pit, forgetting my dignity with someone who hurt me. What's best is slapping me in public and threatening to cut ties. Best is ignoring the whispers and still only caring about your company. I could have accepted many reasons, even her being blunt about viewing me as a commodity. But I couldn't accept her hiding behind the guise of what's best after she couldn't uphold the family name and dumped the responsibility all on me. My torn throat screamed, a sound of pure pain and despair. When Claire tried to touch me, I pushed her away hard. "Get away from me, you!" I said, turning to her. "The biggest regret of my life was believing you, waiting like a fool for us to have a future. If I could go back, I would rather have never met you at all." A heavy slap almost deafened me, shattering my resolve. My mother wanted to scold me, but I beat her to it, tossing the gift I had prepared for her at her feet. The precious jade bracelet shattered into pieces just like my irreparably broken heart. Besides threatening to disown me, what else can you say? If you don't want to be related to me, then fine. Let's cut it off just as you wish. I can't remember how long I walked aimlessly through the neighborhood. When the rain started to fall, I found a dim corner to hide in. Alone. Fear and pain wrapped around my heart like suffocating vines. I was zoning out, staring at the shadows of the trees in the distance, when I found myself lost in a very old memory. The year my dad passed away, I had a huge fight with my mom. I think it was about getting married. She said it was the only way to save the family. I refused, and she slapped me. After that, I just ran and ran until I found a deserted spot to hide. I thought my mom would come looking for me like she used to when I was little. But I waited from morning until night, hungry and dizzy, and she never came. Later, it was a girl who found me, a very, very beautiful girl. I frowned, trying hard to remember. In my memory, she was backlit by the sun, sweat on her forehead. As she lifted whatever was covering my head, she said something. What was it? My head suddenly began to ache badly. Just when I was about to give up trying to remember, I felt a shadow fall over my head. When I looked up, I saw someone standing against the light. Found you. The memory overlapped with reality. Before I could react, a hand pulled me out of the darkness, and suddenly I was holding a small, familiar frame in my arms. You really haven't changed a bit, a voice whispered, hiding in a corner whenever you're upset. Sophie pulled me into her car. She must have run all the way here. Her phone was still on the dial screen, showing only one simple contact name: Alex. Suddenly, tears welled up in my eyes. Sophie, what am I going to do? I don't have a home anymore. Her response was a gentle touch and a long sigh. After a while, she buried my head in her embrace and whispered in my ear, I have a home, Alex. I'll give it to you, okay? She spoke so softly, as if she were afraid of scaring me. She was scared. I was even more scared. Will you lie to me like Claire did? Sophie snorted. I'm nothing like her. When have I ever lied to you? She never had. She had said she would find me, and she did. She froze for a moment, as if doubting herself. Then she pulled my head out of her embrace and said awkwardly, You remembered. Yeah, I remembered. I remembered the neighbor girl I knew before my accident. I remembered our pinky promise that I would marry her when I grew up. I even remembered how, when I had forgotten her after the accident, she had come to visit me, crying her eyes out at the hospital door, calling me a big liar. No wonder I had always been so drawn to Claire's eyes. I used to think it was just a strange quirk, but now I knew. It was because they looked so much like Sophie's. Maybe for all these years, through Claire's eyes, I had always been looking for Sophie. I just hadn't realized it. Once Sophie took me back to her place, she truly gave me a home, in every sense of the word. To get back at Clare, she had her transferred to manage a subsidiary in Africa. With all the troubles gone, my business expanded rapidly. A few times, Sophie even looked at me with a new, impressed expression. Once my company was stable, my mother, Eleanor, came to visit. This time, she knew that Sophie and I were married, and she didn't ask me to reconcile with Claire. I knew what she wanted. So, out of a sense of finality, I gave her the company, as a repayment for raising me, and as a way of cutting our last remaining tie. When she held the signed transfer document, she just looked at me, her eyes red, moving her mouth as if she wanted to say something. When she finally gathered the courage, I cut her off. If there's nothing else, you should go. I have work to do. I used no title, no endearment. My words brought tears to her eyes, but I didn't soften. I kept my head down, focusing on my papers, not giving her another glance. She eventually left. Rain drizzled down endlessly outside, and the air was filled with a heavy, damp scent. The next day, her lawyer found me. He returned the transfer document and even deeded the family villa to me. Her letter was short. I'm old, and perhaps I was too rigid in my ways to consider your feelings. This company was always meant to be yours, a gift from your father. The house, too. Since they are back with you, my task is done. I know you probably hate me, so I won't impose on you any further. Lastly, I wish you happiness. When you have children one day, just send me a photo. That will be enough. I skimmed through it, not sure what to feel. Just one thing was certain. I would be happy, even without relying on anyone. I had enough now to ensure my own comfortable life. While I was lost in thought, Sophie called for the third time. Why aren't you here yet? You promised to come try on your wedding outfit with me, and I ended up here all alone. Did you ditch me? No way, I said, packing up my things and heading for the dressing room. As I reached the door, her hands were already reaching out to grab mine. Not eager about the wedding, huh? Tonight you're not allowed to sleep with me. Of course I am, I replied, a confident smile spreading across my face. I've waited for you for so long. I clasped her hand tightly in mine and walked inside. This time, I wouldn't let anyone else decide my life for me. My happiness and my future were firmly in my own grasp.